Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. One of the things I like most about doing these shows is following the careers and the successes of some of the people we've had on. We've had several encore presentations by authors, artists, entrepreneurs, business people. It's just fun to have them come back and give us an update on their most recent accomplishments in their crafts or professions. I first met today's guest about 2 years ago. He had just published his third book, Deadly Diamond, which was acclaimed at the time as a non-stop ride that keeps you gripping the wheel. I'm delighted to welcome back my guest today to 30 Minutes, John F. Dobbyn, to discuss his latest creation titled Deadly Diamond, which has garnered this accolade. Grisham had better beware. John Dobbyn's humor, pacing, and turn of phrase just may knock Grisham out of the front seat of the legal thriller roller coaster. Welcome, John. Welcome back.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, when I learned about, and you had foretold that you were going to be coming out with your fourth book, Deadly Diamond, I said at the time, when it's ready, come on back, and here you are.
And there was a kind invitation. I couldn't pass it up.
Well, I'm glad you could.
I enjoyed the first time.
The book is just about to be released.
It's on the verge. Matter of fact, it's kind of straddling. The publishing house put it out, which is Ocean View Publishing, put it out on Kindle first, and that's, or rather, the page edition, the hardcover edition, is available in the bookstores now, and then on September 3rd is really the birthday, and that's when
the official launch
in every form, Kindle and Nook and everything will be out at that point.
The book is called Deadly Diamonds, by a novel by John F. Dobbyn. Again, your fourth.
The fourth it is. That's right.
The comparison that has been made between you and John Grisham, widely regarded as the master of the legal thriller.
And is.
How do you feel about that?
How do I feel?
How do you think he feels about that?
Oh, no, that's a different question. Is there an author out there who wouldn't be honored, thrilled, absolutely out of their minds? And that includes me, to be compared to truly the master. The first truly legal thriller that I got involved with was The Firm. And years ago, it's a marvelous piece. There are differences between our styles, but boy, to be compared to John is...
Well, your specialty is legal thrillers.
It is.
Because of your background.
Because of my background, that's right. I went to law school and practiced criminal trial work and civil trial work in Boston before I decided to go straight and go into teaching. And I've been doing that now for some more years than either of us wants to admit.
You told me
yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, why not? 45 years. This is going to be my 45th year.
At Villanova Law School.
It astounds me, too. I just can't believe where it's gone. But in any event, with that background...
So you generated more than 2 generations of people who make our lives miserable.
You know, we were thinking, my wife Lois and I were thinking about that. I think I'm responsible for 6,000 plus...
Wow.
I mean, not single-handedly, but, but I can take some share of the blame.
Yeah.
Or credit.
Yes.
Depending on who we're talking about.
That's right.
Right. Mostly credit, because the people we graduate are... that's the reason I've been doing it for 45 years, is the joy of being with these people.
Stick with that for just a moment.
Sure.
The legal profession has changed considerably. I know a number of reformed lawyers, people who have left the practice,
right?
Because they weren't happy or they thought it just didn't fit. They wanted to go off and do something else. Many of them were entrepreneurs, have gone on to business ventures and so on.
Yes, absolutely.
But are the law schools graduating as many lawyers as they used to?
I think we're finding now that several things are coming into play. One of the things, Rick, and this is no secret because it's been across every headline, is the expense.
Yes.
Law school education and medical college is extremely expensive. And at the end of it, what are you buying? By the way, I don't agree with that argument at all. But the argument goes like this. What are my options in terms of getting a job? I'm going to come out with an enormous debt.
Right.
Are the jobs going to be there? And quite frankly, they're not there right now because of our economy. I think it's a false argument, and the reason I say that is because it always sort of annoys me when I hear people say, "I'm buying the chance to work in a particular." No, you're not. You're buying an education.
Yes.
You're organizing the furniture in your mind,
Yes.
and you'll be living there for the rest of your life, and that's invaluable. And I really believe law school education is is probably the best logic trainers in the world.
I agree with you. Yeah, the ability to
That's what you're buying.
think critically.
Yes.
To be discriminating in this mass of data that we're immersed in.
A sense of relevance. You go to a PT meeting, and you may be the only one there who sticks to the subject.
Yeah. So those competencies, that skill, that skill set, should be applicable and is applicable to any number of other fields.
To anything, absolutely.
Yeah, which accounts for, as I mentioned to you, the number of entrepreneurs I know.
Yes.
Who have Esquire or JD or whatever after their names, and it's because of that skill that has contributed to their success in business.
That's true.
Not only the fact that they understand the law, which gives you an advantage these days particularly.
That's true. Plus, if I could add, the chance to choose your client.
Yes.
By that I mean this: when I was in practice, I was with a law firm. That meant I represented the firm's clients.
Yes.
Who, just between us, because you won't tell anyone, we're not always right.
Did you hear that?
No. And they won't tell anyone.
No, they won't.
They were not always right, and it was seldom that I tried a case that I didn't want to lose.
Yes.
And I could look forward to a career in practice, looking back and saying, gee, because I've been alive, the world is a little worse off.
Yeah.
And that's not a good way to end a career.
Well, it could be worse. You could have been a defense attorney.
I was, Rick. So that is worse. That's the other half of it.
Oh, my God.
And if that doesn't drive you, some of the people I represented really should have been off the streets. And when I walk home, I sort of wish they were. But, you can't choose your clients.
That's another show. We'll have to do that another time. John, what is this fixation you have with diamonds, black diamonds, deadly diamonds? You told me a little bit of this the last time we visited, but let's reprise it.
There seems to be a focus on diamonds, and you're absolutely. I love diamonds for one thing, but that has nothing really to do with it. The third book that came out was called Black Diamond, and you know where that came from? It came from where all of my titles come from, and that is this. I can handle the 90,000 words that go into writing a novel. Eventually you'll learn how to do that. I cannot write 2 words, and the 2 words are the title. I'm genetically incapable. But God gave me the good sense to marry a gal who can. And Lois, my wife Lois, just comes up. It takes her sometimes a maximum of 10 seconds. She said, what's your third book? What's it going to be about this time? I said, this time it's going to be horse racing, one of our true loves. I said, what do you think about a title? She said, well, how about if we say Black Diamond and make that the horse? Done. Sold. Then I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Well, that got us into the diamond business.
Wait, first the title, then you wrote the book?
Yeah, exactly so. All that Lois knew was that I was going to make it about horse racing. But and she loves black horses, and she has no aversion to diamonds. So the two went together. Anyway, now comes the fourth book. And in writing a book, first you start with the characters. But I know the character. They're my old friends Michael Knight and Lex Devlin, who have been with me through 3 novels already. So I know who the characters are going to be, and I know them like members of my family. The question is, how am I going to mess up their lives? I've got to get them in danger. And I went through a number of possibilities, and then finally I came upon this whole field of blood diamonds, conflict diamonds, that I'm sure you've heard about. These are the diamonds that spawn and truly spawn. That's accurate. Spawn and also promote and finance rebel wars, primarily in Africa, that lead to the most horrible things that happen to humanity. And what's behind it? Diamonds. That's the focus. That's the center. The greed, the lust for the diamonds. And the legal market is not much better. In any event, now I focused on diamonds. Now, the funny thing was, I was well into the book when I finally, turned to Lois and said, give me a title.
Need a title.
About 10 seconds, she said, Deadly Diamonds. And I fell in love with it. Called the publisher as soon as I got home, and the publisher said, go with it. That's it. We're not going to change it. And then somebody on the line said, well, do you think that people will confuse it? Black Diamond, Deadly Diamond? And the publisher said, no, and I don't care. That title is just perfect. We're going to go with it. But in this case, we're talking about real diamonds. We're talking about those little rocks.
Yes.
And in doing the research for the book and also for the talks that I'll be giving now, beginning early, 1st of September, on the book, that gets me into the background of the diamond industry. And Rick, it's fascinating. It is shocking, goes about halfway.
Research. Now, you told me when we visited the last time that the time that you have to write is constrained by your day job.
True.
And so you
True.
write in the summer,
I do.
spring through summer and early fall.
Exactly.
That's your block of time.
That's my block.
And therefore you have to discipline yourself to
Yes.
get it all
Oh,
done.
boy, yes.
Right.
Yes.
But does the research go on all year?
Yes, it does.
As you approach your book, and I'm sure the
Yes,
fifth
it
book
does.
is already in your mind.
Yeah,
So you
it is.
begin the research.
You begin the research. You know where I begin the research in the shower. I begin it while I'm waiting for Lois to get dressed. I'm almost constantly thinking about it. When we're playing golf, as a matter of fact, the whole subject came to me on the 5th hole of the Phoenixville Golf Club.
Really?
Yeah. You never stop thinking about it. Now, but what you're talking about is research. In other words, the factual background.
Yes.
And that takes a great deal of work.
Is it any of it on site? You didn't go to Africa.
Usually, yes.
Oh?
In the first 3 books, no.
Oh, it was not on site.
The first 3 books, yes, it was on site. For example, the Deadly Diamonds takes place to a large extent in Dublin and in an area called the Cora, which is the horse racing
Yes.
area of Ireland. Yes, we went there. We explored every site. And part of Deadly Diamonds takes place on the west coast of Ireland as well as... Yes, we went there and explored all of that. A serious segment of the book takes place in Sierra Leone, in Africa. And Rick, the answer is no, I have not been there, and believe me, I'm
You
not
don't wanna be
calling
there.
the tour
No.
guide to set it
Yeah.
up. It is, you want to hear something?
Please.
That's why I'm
Please.
here, though. Sierra Leone is a small country. It's about half the size of Pennsylvania, about 6 million people. Right about in the center of the west coast of Africa, right on the coast. It is potentially the wealthiest country in the world, Rick. They have deposits of diamonds, of gold, of other gems. Now they're discovering oil in that country.
Is that
It could be another Dubai. I mean, it could be zero poverty, no hunger, education, health care, absolutely at the top.
But it's a battleground.
A couple of years ago, the United Nations did a survey of 170 countries in terms of poverty. Poverty levels,
Yes.
Sierra Leone, 170th. Abject poverty that you and I in our wildest dreams can't literally, I had nightmares when I was researching this book about how those people live.
Because it's under the control of a cartel?
It's not so much a cartel. There are 2 factions. There are 2 reasons that it is the poorest country on earth. Number 1 is the government. And the government, if you can call it that, has one product that it produces, and that is graft and corruption. It's its sole product. Self-interest. I want all I can get out of every possibility. There is no government that's doing practically anything to benefit the country. And the other is this group of rebels. It's called the Revolutionary United Front, the RUF. Rick, it's composed of children 15 years old down to 8 years old. And it began as a rebel group against this totally corrupt government, trying to improve the country. It didn't last long. This group started under the tutelage of the dictator, the vicious man, Charles Taylor, who was dictator of Liberia, the next country. And he trained them in all of the inhuman arts of rebellion. Now they cross the border. Now, as soon as they get into Sierra Leone, all of a sudden the focus shifts from rebellion, let's improve the country, to we want the diamonds. So they used terroristic acts that I'm not even going to describe. I didn't describe them in the book either. I wouldn't put the reader through that. But they seized and took control of the diamond pits, which are in the eastern block of the country. And it's a cycle. They enslave the villagers in an area, kill most of them, save the children. The children are now inducted into their army. How do they get them in? Drugs. Feed them on drugs, hand them an AK-47, blindfold them, tell them pull the trigger. They take off the blindfold and they realize they've killed members of their family.
Yeah.
Now, more drugs, now they're members of the, and the cycle goes on. Now they have the diamond pits. Now they steal the diamonds, smuggle them across the easy border of Liberia. There are diamond merchants waiting there, just waiting to trade those diamonds, more drugs, more guns, and the cycle simply goes on. Now there was a peace struck in 2002 between the RUF and this so-called government. So now it's been, what, 11 years? That's 11 years ago. One of the great writers in this area, Greg Campbell, who wrote the book, Blood Diamonds, went over there to see, last year I believe it was, to see how has that country improved. It is just a little worse than it was in those days. Disease, rampant, and so why? You know why? Because now first of all, the RUF is still there. I mean, there are still diamond pits that they control, regardless of what anyone says. Secondly, the diamond pits that belong to the government, and you can't imagine the wealth that comes out of it, are now operated by foreign private industry. These private industries will build walls and razor wire around these. I'm sure the government gets its cut from them.
Sure.
But as far as the people outside, poverty, that I wouldn't begin to describe it to you.
And hopeless? It sounds hopeless.
Hopeless. Hopeless.
Tragic.
There was one ray of hope, but I'll tell you about that later. I don't want to keep rambling.
Well, the plot is further complicated because you bring in the Italian mafia and the Irish mafia.
Yes, yes.
I don't want to give away the entire plot, but how does all that work? What's the relevance of those?
That's a very excellent question. Excellent question. What I like to do when I'm writing a novel is this. I don't pre-plan a whole lot. But what I do have in mind is I know the general subject. I know the characters. I know the general subject.
Are you saying the story tells itself?
Yeah,
it
pretty
does?
much. Yes, that's pretty much what happens. I wake up in the morning and pray for inspiration, and it always comes for some reason or other. But what I like to do is take two threads. In this case, we had a situation where the two lawyers begin with a client who's the son of the head of the Irish mafia.
The two lawyers are Knight and...
Michael Knight and Lex Devlin. Okay. Young, who tells the story in the first person, that's Michael, and the tough old curmudgeon.
And
Lex.
These two guys have been with you through now 4 books.
They have. They with me or I with them. I'm
Yes.
not sure which way. I'm not sure who's in charge here.
All right.
But so they begin with representation of the son of the Irish Don on a murder charge. And the murder charge involves, it turns out, to involve diamonds, a bag of diamonds that's on the cover of the book, as a matter of fact. And it turns out that there is this competition in a deadly sort of way between the Irish mafia and the Italian mafia for that same bag of diamonds, which, by the way, could buy half a country in terms of the value. Now, where did those diamonds come from? Leave that one. Now let's go to Sierra Leone. Now I'm going to tell a backstory about an individual who is in the slave pits and but escapes and so on. And then he goes on from there. Now he needs the diamonds to ransom his father, who is also a captive. I don't want to tell too much. But in any event, the two threads come together. And then for the last, I don't know, third to half of the book, these people are working together for the same cause.
You're a disciplined writer because you have to be. You have this gift so that you wake up in the morning, pray for inspiration, and somehow it's there. The story tells itself.
I always count on it.
And is that a gift or whatever it is that was inherited? Are there other authors in your family, in your family tree?
No.
But you're Irish.
Actually,
Irish are great storytellers.
That's right. I went to an Irish doctor last week who told me, he said, hey, would you tell me a story about science? I said, I'm not sure I can tell that story. He said, of course you can. Inside the skin of every Irishman, there's a storyteller. No, there were no writers in my family as far back as I can recall.
But lawyers traditionally, traditionally is the wrong word, normally I would say, are not very good writers. They're good. They can write a good brief.
You know, you're right.
But they're not good creative writers.
That seems
because
true.
They're trained not to think outside of the box.
That's true. That is true. Right. Logically, but not inspirationally.
And everything is prescribed.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're the exception.
Well,
so that means you're right-brained and
thank
left-brained?
you.
Yes.
Yeah, in terms of the left or right brain,
Yeah.
I'm not sure which is operating
well,
at any one moment.
Sounds like all the cylinders are going. Where do you get the story ideas? Do they just pop into your head? Or now that you've got 4 books, there's
Right.
some threads, and so is the next book an extension to some extent of
You know, that's a very good question.
of the way you programmed yourself to begin to think through the eyes, and I guess the minds of these 2 characters you've created?
To some extent, that's true, Rick, but I think it comes from a different source. I start with the characters. Remember, Rick, when I wrote the first book, Neon Dragon, I started with the characters. But then, literally, the question was, how do I mess up their lives? How do I put them in danger, and so on? And, you know, that's wide open. I mean, you got the world to choose from, but not the world that's been done, not one that has been, you know. So, you know, it's funny because I was driving along Route 202, and I remembered a dear friend from high school, and his name was Donald Dong, and Donald had just come over from China. And Donald took me down to the Chinatown in Boston and showed me things that we folk don't see. You know, in other words, where does the Chinese Tong operate its 24-hour gambling den, and so on. We're totally oblivious to that without Donald's instruction. This is 45, 50 years later, and all of a sudden, it all came back. And I thought, gee, Chinese Tong, Chinatown. Suppose there's a murder in Chinatown, and that hauls, and then I can educate without educating, without being teachy about it.
Yes.
What's going on in the Chinese Tong, which most people think doesn't even exist.
Right.
But that was that book. Now, when I leave that one, is there a connection with the second book, Frame Up? And the answer is no,
Yes.
because there, for some reason, I got interested in art theft and art forgery internationally. The robbery of that great art museum in Boston, and the name is just I can't think of the name of it, but it's the largest art theft in history. And that had happened a while ago, and it came back into the news. A great Vermeer was stolen from that. And that seized my attention. And I began to think, suppose you've stolen one of 35 existing Vermeers. What do you do with it?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows what
Yeah.
it looks like. You know, you can't sell it as an original. What can you do with it? And then I did some research and found, but the Russian mafia internationally, they can do something with it.
I don't think that you've yet drawn in the Middle East and the intrigue of the Middle East.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
Is that in the offing somewhere?
You never know. I'm not sure because I haven't settled on the next one. The Middle East is beginning to be pretty well done.
Yeah, I guess so. But with your mind, you'll find something in there that somebody others haven't thought of.
Oh, you're good.
These
Thank
are
you,
quick
Rick.
reads. Your 4th book, the
Good.
Deadly Diamonds, is fewer than 300 pages. The others are relatively short, quick reads.
About 90,000
by
words.
design. By design, because that's the audience you're appealing to. People who don't like tomes.
No, it's actually the publisher. Our publisher publishes nothing but mysteries and legal thrillers. And and when I said, "What's a good length? Where would you like this to come in?" And they said, "The problem with new writers is they tend to be expansive. They tend to use words as if we're paying them by the word, and and it slows down the story." I'd written before I started on these 26 short stories for Ellery Queen's Mystery Magazine, published, Ellery Queen and Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine. And that taught me to make every word carry its weight and no fluff. It's the speed, full speed ahead. And so I found that 90,000 words is a good, comfortable...
If this were 400 pages,
Yeah.
would it not sell as well? Is
It
that what
might
the
sell
publisher
as well.
said?
I wouldn't be as happy with it, and I don't think the reviewers would say it speeds, from beginning to end.
That brings up another question. Do you write for yourself, as I've heard other authors say, or do you write for your audience? And maybe it's yes.
It's yes.
Is it?
Yeah, because I'm the audience. Basically, I'm really no different from anyone else who reads these.
But some authors have said, I write for myself. I really don't care about the audience.
Yeah.
I mean, if they like it, fine, but I write for me.
I can't say that. I can't say I don't care. No, because remember, I want to do 2 things. I want to teach you about the RUF and blood diamonds in this book without being gory. But I want to do it without letting you know that I'm teaching you. So basically, you know, I know about it, so I'm not writing for myself in that respect. And
every writer's dream, like every author's dream, I guess, is to have their book adapted to become a movie or a television series or whatever. Last time you were here, you told me, you shared with me that there's an option on one of your books.
It's not well, yeah. It's basically it's going to be made into a movie.
It's not an option.
It's a different route, and I far favor this route. I have friends who have had their books optioned.
Yes.
And as you know, the course of an option is I step in and I say, I'll write you a check. We'll agree on an amount. Here's the check. Now, bye-bye. That's the last we want to hear from you. We now own your book.
Yes.
And we're, you know, Eileen Maisel was a producer with New Line Productions, and she split off about 5 years ago, formed her own, Amber Productions, with 3 others. And they have studios in London and in Hollywood. She read, I forget which book, I think she read 2 of them, and she called the publisher and said, I want to set up a lunch with, you know, so I got a call from the publisher who said, Jack, I have a Hollywood producer, she wants to have lunch with you in New York, can you make it? Well, I'll start walking right now. I'm halfway there. So we met, and she uses words like she is driven to put these 2 characters on the big screen, and so. But she was tied up with a production that is going to premiere October 11th, and that's a new production of Romeo and Juliet. And she filmed it in Italy, right on the scene. But now that's, you know, sort of in the box, now she's ready to begin. But the nice part of it is she doesn't want an option where I leave.
Yes.
She wants me to work with the screenplay writer.
And I was about to ask.
And I love that, to be sure the characters are, you know.
Yeah. That'll be your first experience.
Oh, will it ever?
That. Yeah.
Will it ever?
And it will be a motion picture film, not a TV, or will it be a made-for-TV?
You know, it's funny. At that lunch, she said, I fell in love with those 2 characters.
Yeah.
And
it's a series.
Exactly. That's what she's planning on, because we've got the rest of the books. And she said, my first thought was, I want to make a television series. And then she said, no, it's too small. I'm going to make a movie out of this.
And then a series.
And then a series, right? Could happen.
We mentioned John Grisham at the top of the show. Who is your favorite mystery writer?
Who is my favorite? Are you ready for a dichotomy, Rick? My favorite is still Arthur Conan Doyle. I have never gotten over the Sherlock. That's what intrigued me in the first place when I was in high school, when I was supposed to be reading Silas Marner and so on. But I'll give you the other one, whom I came upon at exactly the same time, and that was Mickey Spillane. So if you combine Arthur Conan Doyle and Mickey Spillane, never met Arthur Conan Doyle, but I did have a chance to meet Mickey Spillane.
Really?
Yeah, and he was a charming kind of guy. He was Mike Hammer.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked like him, he talked like him, and he was just as tough as nails. And it's fascinating. But those both got me into the field. And then I've been reading, you know, lots of these based on those 2.
Yeah. Does your wife write? Or does she just inspire you to write?
She inspires me to write, and she writes in a way that almost no one writes anymore. She writes the most beautiful letters. Her handwriting is like calligraphy, and she composes letters. And people get these letters, and they actually frame them, or they put them up on the wall.
She favors a written note or a letter to email?
She does. Oh, yeah. Oh, far and away.
I think that pendulum is slowly swinging back.
Is it? That would be good. That would be nice.
At least a handful of people who would prefer to scrabble out a note, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and send it, because you notice it.
You do.
Because it is now the exception.
Isn't that true? And it's personal.
And he's training me or teaching me to do the same thing.
No kidding.
Rather than send an email.
Isn't that good?
I'll scratch out a little note, and it's illegible because I don't write very well. Sister Mary, whatever, would turn over a page.
I know what you mean.
In the little time we have left, a couple of words of advice to aspiring authors,
writers. Boy. Wow. My gosh. You know what? There are 3 words that occur to me, and I really shouldn't say them. There was a time when I used to play hockey. This is a roundabout way of getting to an answer, but I used to play hockey in high school and when I was in college. And then I gave it up. But after 30, 35, I took it up again. And I happened to be a close friend with John Gregg, who was the orthopedic surgeon of the Flyers, so he would take me in, and I met a lot of them. Just as I was getting back into it, I happened to he introduced me to Bill Barber, who used to, you know, you remember Bill Barber, great player, great player and coach. Anyway, I said, Bill, I'm thinking of getting back into it. Do you have any advice? He said, yes, I can give you the best advice in the world. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it on your body. Those are the first three words that popped into my mind. And the reason I say it is this. It is a terribly difficult field to break into. Yes. Terribly. Rick, you walk
You've been
into...
very fortunate. Well, gifted.
Very fortunate. Very fortunate to find Ocean View Publishing, who gave me a chance, and then they stuck with me, and it worked out.
Wish you the best of luck. Your new baby, newborn, Deadly Diamonds, coming out, is out now, but next week officially. I hope it does very, very well, and I'll wait for the movie. Thank you for being here.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I am Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves and pick up Deadly Diamonds.